Most men do not lose a woman because they are unattractive, unsuccessful, or unintelligent. They lose her through a series of small behaviors that quietly destroy respect. And the dangerous part is that many of these behaviors look harmless. Some even look romantic, being endlessly available, explaining yourself too much, giving more than the other person has earned, avoiding disagreement because you do not want to create tension. You may believe you are showing love, but beneath the surface, you may actually be communicating fear. Fear that she will lose interest. Fear that she will choose someone else. Fear that if you stop performing, pleasing, texting, proving, and chasing, the connection will disappear. And people can sense that fear. You rarely have to announce your insecurity. It appears in your timing, your posture, your decisions, and the things you tolerate. It appears in how quickly you abandon your standards when someone attractive enters the room. This is where dark psychology becomes useful, not as a collection of tricks for controlling women, but as a way of recognizing the hidden motives controlling you. Because if you cannot govern your own emotions, someone else will eventually govern them for you. Here are 9 things smart men should never do with women. Number 9, never make pleasing her your entire personality. Kindness is powerful. Neediness is not. There is a major difference between doing something because you genuinely want to do it and doing it because you are terrified of losing approval. A secure man can be generous without keeping score. He can give attention, affection, time, and support, but he can also say no. He can disagree. He can protect his time without feeling guilty. The people-pleasing man cannot do that. He studies every reaction. He changes his opinions to avoid conflict. He apologizes when he has done nothing wrong. If she becomes distant, he immediately asks what happened. If she is upset, he assumes it must be his responsibility to fix her mood. His apparent kindness is really a negotiation. He is silently saying, I will give you everything you want, and in exchange, you must never reject me. But attraction cannot breathe inside an emotional contract like that. The more desperately you seek approval, the less valuable your approval becomes. If you admire everything she does, tolerate every behavior, and agree with every opinion, your attention no longer means anything. Real kindness requires strength because genuine kindness is voluntary. It comes from choice, not fear. Be respectful, be generous, be warm, but never become so desperate to please someone that you disappear from your own life. Number 8, never reveal everything too quickly. Many men confuse complete disclosure with emotional intimacy. They meet someone they like, feel an immediate connection, and begin revealing their entire history, every wound, every insecurity, every failed relationship, every future plan. They believe honesty will accelerate closeness. But intimacy cannot be rushed. It has to be earned. When you reveal everything immediately, you remove discovery from the relationship. There is no gradual unfolding, no emotional progression, no space for curiosity. A strong connection is not built by unloading your entire psychological history onto another person. It is built through consistent experiences that slowly create trust. This does not mean you should become dishonest, cold, or emotionally unavailable. It means you should understand timing. A private person is not necessarily a deceptive person. You can answer honestly without turning the first date into a therapy session. You can be vulnerable without making a stranger responsible for wounds they did not create. The deeper truth is that oversharing often comes from anxiety. Silence feels uncomfortable, so you fill it. Uncertainty feels dangerous, so you try to force connection through confession. But emotional discipline means allowing things to develop naturally. Mystery is not about pretending to be someone else. It is about recognizing that every part of you does not need to be displayed immediately. Let trust determine access. Number 7, never abandon your purpose for attention. One of the most seductive qualities in any person is direction. You know what matters to you. You have responsibilities, you have goals. Your life possesses a center. Then someone attractive enters your world, and suddenly everything changes. You cancel your plans whenever she becomes available. You stop training. You neglect your work. You respond instantly to every message. The ambitions that once made you interesting slowly disappear. You call it romance. But what you are really communicating is that your purpose was never very strong. A healthy relationship should add meaning to your life. It should not erase the structure of your life. This is why ambition matters. Not because every man needs to become wealthy or famous, but because ambition shows that you are engaged with existence. You are building something. You are moving towards something. When another person becomes your only source of excitement, you place an impossible burden on them. They must now provide your confidence, happiness, identity, and sense of progress. Eventually, that pressure becomes exhausting. A grounded man can love deeply without losing direction. He can give a woman his full attention when he is with her while still protecting the commitments that make him who he is. Do not use work to avoid intimacy, but never destroy your mission to prove your affection. The right person will not require you to become smaller in order to keep them. Number 6, never ignore behavior because you are hypnotized by beauty. Beauty creates a powerful bias. When you are strongly attracted to someone, you begin interpreting their behavior differently. Disrespect becomes confidence. Emotional instability becomes passion. Manipulation becomes mystery. You excuse what you would immediately recognize in anyone else. This is how intelligent men make irrational decisions. They do not lack information. They simply do not want the information to be true. If she repeatedly lies, humiliates you, violates your boundaries, creates jealousy intentionally, or only appears when she needs something, pay attention. Do not argue with the pattern because you are attracted to the person creating it. Words can be carefully designed. Patterns are more difficult to fake. One apology may be sincere, but repeated behavior reveals priorities. Anyone can make a mistake. The question is whether they take responsibility and change. This is where observation becomes more valuable than theory. You do not need a complicated formula to understand someone. Watch how they treat people who cannot benefit them. Watch how they behave when they are disappointed. Watch whether their actions match their promises. And most importantly, notice how you feel around them, not the temporary excitement, not the chemical high. Do you feel respected? Can you communicate honestly? Are you becoming more focused and emotionally stable, or more anxious and confused? Attraction can introduce you to someone. It should never blind you to who they are. Number 5, never confuse jealousy with love. Jealousy is often romanticized because it feels intense. You see her speaking to another man, and your mind immediately begins constructing a story. You become cold. You demand reassurance. You inspect her behavior for evidence. You may even try to make her jealous in return. For a moment, this can feel like power. In reality, and it is usually fear wearing the mask of control, You cannot build trust by policing another person's existence. You cannot create loyalty through surveillance. And you cannot prevent betrayal by becoming increasingly possessive. If someone is determined to deceive you, controlling behavior will not create integrity in them. It will only destroy your peace. This does not mean you should ignore obvious disrespect. Trust does not require blindness. If an agreed boundary is crossed, address it directly, but address facts, not fantasies. A confident man does not pretend he never feels jealousy. He examines it. He asks whether it is coming from real evidence, an old wound, or a fear that he is not enough. Then he responds deliberately instead of becoming a servant to the emotion. The goal is not to become emotionless. The goal is to stop allowing every emotion to become an instruction. Feel jealousy if it appears. Understand what caused it. Communicate where necessary, but never use jealousy as an excuse to control, punish, or manipulate. Number 4, never argue for your own value. The moment someone loses interest, many men begin presenting evidence. They explain how loyal they are. They list everything they have done. They remind her of their potential. They send paragraphs trying to convince her that leaving would be a mistake. But value that must be constantly announced is rarely believed. When someone does not appreciate you, arguing harder usually lowers your position. It communicates that their judgment matters more than your self-respect. This does not mean you should become arrogant or refuse necessary conversations. Misunderstandings happen. Mature people communicate, but communication and begging are not the same thing. Communication says, this is what I feel, this is what I need, and this is what I am willing to do. Begging says, please see me differently so I can feel valuable again. You must learn to recognize the point where a conversation is no longer productive. If she has clearly decided that the relationship is over, accept the information. Do not chase someone for the privilege of being tolerated. Do not perform emotional gymnastics to remain in a place where you are no longer respected. Rejection can hurt without defining you. Sometimes the most powerful response is not a brilliant argument. It is the ability to accept reality, preserve your dignity, and walk away without creating unnecessary drama. You do not prove your value by describing it. You demonstrate it through the standards by which you live. Number 3, never surrender your boundaries to avoid losing her. A boundary is not an attempt to control another person. It is a decision about what you will participate in. That distinction matters. You cannot say, you are forbidden from behaving this way, and call it a boundary. You can say, if this behavior continues, I will remove myself from the situation. A boundary without a consequence is merely a request. Many men understand this intellectually, but cannot apply it emotionally. They know a certain behavior is unacceptable, yet when the moment arrives, fear takes over. They tolerate disrespect because they do not want to appear insecure. They accept repeated cancellations because they do not want to seem demanding. They pretend to be comfortable with an arrangement that is quietly destroying them. And each time they betray their own standard, resentment grows. Eventually, they explode over something small. The explosion appears sudden, but it was created by months of silence. Strong boundaries prevent this because they create clarity early. You communicate calmly. You avoid threats. You do not shout. You simply make your standard known and allow the other person to choose. Then you pay attention to that choice. The strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. It is often the person who can remain calm because they know what they will and will not accept. You do not need to dominate someone to demonstrate strength. Sometimes strength is simply the willingness to leave what consistently damages you. Number 2, never use manipulation as a substitute for character. There is no shortage of advice telling men to create anxiety intentionally. Wait exactly 3 hours before replying. Disappear without explanation. Make her jealous. Give attention, then suddenly withdraw it. Keep her emotionally uncertain so that she remains obsessed. These tactics may create a reaction, but a reaction is not the same as respect, attraction, or love. Intermittent attention can make people anxious because the human mind becomes preoccupied with unpredictable rewards. Casinos use the same principle. Social media platforms use it. Emotionally manipulative people use it. But if your entire romantic strategy depends on destabilizing someone, you are not building connection. You are engineering dependence. And dependence eventually produces resentment. There is a healthy version of space. You have a life. You do not need constant contact. You respect each other's independence. You are not available every second of every day. But healthy space is natural. Manipulative absence is calculated punishment. A mature man does not need to manufacture scarcity because his life already has substance. He is not constantly available because he has responsibilities, not because he is pretending to be busy. He does not hide his interest to appear powerful. He expresses interest without surrendering his judgment. Dark psychology should help you recognize manipulation, not justify becoming manipulative. If you need tricks to keep someone interested, you do not possess the connection you believe you have. Build character instead. Character survives after the performance ends. Number 1, never let your emotions make your decisions for you. This is the foundation beneath every other mistake. A woman pulls away and you panic. She criticizes you and you become defensive. She rejects you and you become obsessed. She gives you attention and you abandon your standards. In every case, the external event is controlling your internal state. That is the real loss of power. Emotional control does not mean suppressing everything you feel. Suppressed emotions do not disappear. They return as resentment, addiction, rage, anxiety, or passive aggression. Control means creating space between the feeling and the action. When something triggers you, stop. Do not send the message immediately. Do not make the accusation. Do not announce a final decision while your body is flooded with anger or fear. Ask yourself a more difficult question. What is this emotion trying to protect? Perhaps her criticism touched an insecurity you have been avoiding. Perhaps her distance activated your fear of abandonment. Perhaps your anger is hiding embarrassment. Perhaps your obsession has less to do with love and more to do with your wounded ego. The surface emotion is not always the real emotion. And until you understand the deeper motive, you remain vulnerable to it. This is why self-knowledge is more powerful than any dating technique. When you understand your patterns, you stop becoming predictable to people who might exploit them. Flattery cannot control you as easily. Silence cannot make you panic. Beauty cannot erase your judgment. Rejection cannot destroy your identity. You become capable of responding to reality instead of reacting to fear. That is real power. Not controlling women. Not collecting attention. Not pretending to be indifferent. Real power is the ability to remain yourself when desire is pressuring you to become someone else. A smart man understands that relationships are not won through endless pleasing, emotional games, or artificial dominance. They are built through observation, boundaries, generosity, courage, and self command. Be kind, but do not beg. Be vulnerable, but respect timing. Be ambitious, but remain emotionally present. Give attention, but never abandon your purpose. Love deeply, but do not ignore reality. And if a relationship requires you to sacrifice your dignity in order to preserve it, understand that it has already cost you too much. The most dangerous mistake a man can make with a woman is not saying the wrong thing. It is losing himself while trying to become what he believes she wants. Because once you abandon your identity for approval, and even if you get the relationship, you will eventually resent the person you became to keep it. Master your emotions. Protect your standards. Observe behavior. And never give another person more authority over your mind than you possess over it yourself.